This is episode 222 of the Gold Squadron podcast. I'm your host, Dio Morales, and today I'm joined by Marcel We Bid Manzano.
We do bid. Not the deepest bid, but we bid.
Will World War XTC Hagewood.
How's it going, everybody?
And Ryan, prep for it all, Staniszewski.
I guess that it's two aspects. You do it XTC, and everything I've done over the past week, painted the baby room, replaced a bunch of electrical stuff, just everything. It was very busy.
Ryan he's been nesting, is what I'm hearing. He's getting the house ready for the arrival of the child, which is fantastic. All right, well, today, what are we going to be talking about? Well, first, if you haven't watched episode 4 of Gold Squadron Paint, 4 hasn't dropped yet. If you haven't watched episode 3, you should do that. And episode 4 is ready for you to set your reminders right now. And if you haven't seen the prompt yet, you can head over, type !W. In fact, I'll do it with you guys, okay? We will type !W. And we will take a look at PW. What am I saying? Words are hard this morning. Go to Paint Wars, !PW, click the link, and it will take you to this wonderful screen. Let's go ahead and switch on over. It'll take you right here, and you can see that our next episode, the prompt is Dia de los Muertos. All right, Dia de los Muertos. I am excited to see.
Is that a spoiler?
Yeah, just first reveal right now. Spoilers.
My sister would love that prompt. She's a huge fan of all those designs.
You know what that prompt reminds me of? I know Dia de los Muertos, but it reminds me of a Cheech Marin movie, not Cheech and Chong, a Cheech Marin movie called Born in the USA or Born in East LA or one of those, where Cheech gets accidentally deported and he's trying to find his way back to the U.S., but he left his wallet at home, and he goes through Dia de los Muertos parade to get back. It was a good movie. Watch it. Any Cheech and Chong movie is good. So if anybody did some type of Cheech thing to it, Cheech and Chong, Cheech Marin thing to it, that would be awesome. I doubt it.
I will give you a spoiler right now. No, but it could have been, you know what, that could have been a very abstract interpretation of the prompt. If you haven't hit that set reminder button, go ahead, do it now. It goes live 7 p.m. on Tuesday. I will be in the chat, as well as I'm sure some of the painters, and those painters who know see, once the prompts come out, the painters know that it's their turn, so that the nerves start coming out. And spoilers, you can actually see the painters' names right here. All right, Omer, David, and Brian. And by the way, if you want commission information, that is in all of the Paint Wars descriptions. But we will talk more about Paint Wars when Paint Wars goes live. Also, we have leaked card images. I actually posted a video yesterday? Was it yesterday? The timeline moves so fast. 2 days ago, 3 days, a couple of days ago, I received in my inbox pictures of 5 cards that hadn't been spoiled yet by AMG, and I was like, this is strange and awkward. I guess I'll just tell everybody about it. So I did. But Ryan, Will, and Marcel have not gotten their opportunity to give us their opinions, so I want to hear them. If you want to hear my opinions, go ahead, watch the video. I go through the cards and talk about them a little bit. And last but not least, the August 28th we have the final round of the XTC happening that weekend. And today we're actually going to be taking a look at the lists. And specifically, we talked about some of them before, but we're looking for what teams actually changed the lists that they brought, and maybe just kind of doing some speculations as to why those changes were made. But before we jump into our main topics, I want to remind you that our podcast episodes are brought to you by our GSP patrons. Becoming a patron makes you a part of our largest group of supporters here at GSP. Thank you to everybody who has. You can go to patreon.com/Gold Squadron to become a patron today. All right, guys, we're going to start by jumping into those cards. Have you guys had a moment to peek at those? I'm almost sure you guys have at least taken a gander. So let me go ahead and get my files up here. Let's switch screens. And I would love to know your thoughts on. We'll start with Compassion. So what's this card, Will?
Compassion is a light side force talent that reads: before another friendly ship at range 0 to 2 would be dealt a face-up pilot or crew damage card, crew being for epic ships, you may spend 1 force charge. If you do, that damage card is discarded instead, and you are dealt 1 face-down damage card. If you have 2 or more damage cards, recover 2 force. So this is very interesting that it's light side. It is a Ben Solo card, which makes me think that might either he might be like Anakin Skywalker, who can use both light side and dark side. The other thing is that this reminds me of pseudo selfless, kind of like a reverse selfless, where you take a hit instead of your friend taking a crit. I guess that's pretty much what selfless is. The other thing is that you'd have to have 2 or more damage cards. So if you were already if you're flying at Kylo in the Whisper, you would already be halved essentially, because they have a 4 hull, 2 shield stat line, and then you would be able to take 1 more damage there to recover 2 force. This is, I'm trying to think of other places that this could go for light side.
Oh, yeah, side is not light side, yeah.
That side is not light side.
Well, I think she's nice.
She is nice. She can be nice. Obviously, all of the Jedi, though.
Luke Skywalker.
Yep, Luke Skywalker.
Well, actually, Luke doesn't want more force. No,
yeah,
he's got plenty of force. He's swimming in it.
He pretty much is, but he has the force to spend though to take a damage instead, because it's. Let me double check. You are dealt 1 face down damage card, so you do it while you have shields, right? Luke could just like take a damage, be like, "No, Hera, don't take that crit and die." You could do it. The other thing would be Leia, but she only has 1 force charge, so you need to put something, a second force.
Kanan in the VCX mentioned by Rishka in chat.
Yeah, plenty of hole to spare there to be soaking crits. And like I said, I think the value is going to be to recover those 2 force charges, but there's very few tanky ships who could just be taking a bunch of damage cards.
Okay, so here's the thing that I don't know how many people missed, but this is why I love it on Canon or on Leia, on Beefy Leia. So it says before another friendly ship. Oh, never mind. It's another. I was hoping they would say before a friendly ship. I was like, yes.
Did you see the 0 to 2 and you were like, 0 means myself? But
Zero
it said
means
other.
me. Now, I will change it though a little bit. This Leia and Canon makes sense because they have so much hull, and they're like, yeah, just give me another one. Just give me another one. But they're usually probably the ships that are getting targeted anyway. I mean, those are
and they're expensive too.
Down. They're expensive, and they're the ones you want to burn down. I'm thinking something like TIE Fighter Ezra, or isn't there a TIE Fighter with Force? Yeah, TIE Fighter.
Yeah,
Sheet
Ezra, I
speed.
think, yeah.
Sheath Speed and Ezra. There's his attack shuttle form as well, but you know,
Yeah,
got
so
4
basically
hull.
move and get in the way, move, evade. So your evade, force, 3 agility, and cheap, not a good target to shoot at, but yet he's there basically. It triggers 3 times.
Did you just find a use for the Rebel TIE Fighter? What?
Well, we'll talk about Rebel TIE Fighters
Ryan
later.
doesn't believe. Right?
We'll talk about Rebel TIE Fighters later.
So,
We'll figure
so
out.
the thing about this card is we're talking about it mostly in the sense of the Rebel faction that already has Selfless, which I think is
Right.
better.
Right, yeah, we are completely skipping over Rey. She is on this card, known for her compassion.
Yeah.
Could be a way to save other tanky ships like
Ray Poe.
like Poe, an A-wing who doesn't want to take like a panicked pilot or something like that, blinded
Rey
pilot
seems
before
too
they shoot.
valuable to be pulling damage off other people, though, right? Like
I was
she
thinking
doesn't
that
have
too.
as much health as a regular
Well,
Falcon either.
Well,
But
if you're just
She
trying to
wants the extra
recover the force,
If you're using it more for get the force and like, you know what, I'm dry and I need to recover. At that point, it becomes like Maul. Just take a damage and get 2 force.
That's an interesting one I forgot about. Speaking of Maul, Kanan Hawk with say Maul crew on it is light side, could take this.
Really hard to not take patience on him though with that type of build. In terms of
I would rather have Moldy
force
Crow than Maul on him, but
I mean, if you had everything, right? If you did the Maul and Moldy
Jeez.
Crow.
I think one of the things that we're finding is most of the time upgrades, when they are more flexible and they have I think a more obvious use, they're usually better. I don't think that we think this is going to be very expensive, or at least not very good if it is. Is that a good generalization there?
2, patience is 2. So this is a better version of both. So I would say 4 points, maybe 3, because it's limited by light side force users.
Do you think this is better than Patience, or better than Selfless?
I think it's on par. It's on par with both.
I mean, so the upside of regaining 2 force is good. It's just the niche part of it requires it to be a pilot crit, and there are a lot less pilot crits in the deck than there are ship crits.
Yeah, this might not ever trigger, which would be sad. So yeah, I can't imagine this being more than 3-4 points.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think it needs to be pretty cheap in order to actually get equipped, for the reason that, like you said, Will, there are possibilities where this just never goes off.
I mean, I've flown a lot of Greedo Bosk, so you can get it to trigger pretty easily. It seems like Bosk is always taking blindeds, so might actually have a lot of utility in the Scum faction, but limited application though. I think Kanan's the only light side force user in Scum.
Yes,
That sounds right. Yeah.
Well, there's compassion. Let's go on to Dread. We have another pilot. Take it, Marcel.
So Dread is the reads better over there. Devotee of Devastation. Ooh, like them descriptions there. After you reload, each ship in your bullseye gains a deplete token. So yeah, basically you reload, and everybody, including friendly ships, get a deplete. And this one has a reload to evade, so basically just keeps them alive. I think you said it in the YouTube video that probably this ship has some either additional ordnance or additional bombs. Probably right. So it's a way to keep them alive a little bit longer. I don't know. So it sounds okay, but not great. Because deplete at Initiative 3, maybe if you accidentally end up in front of a bunch of in front of a storm and you can line them up exactly right, but even then, I don't think it's great. And correct me if I'm. This is not the silencer, is it? It's the bomber.
Correct.
So
Yeah, it's the bomber.
So it doesn't have the bullseye. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it just feels very meh. I mean,
You don't seem excited. Ryan or Will, you got either of you popping off for this pilot?
I'm popping off for the title, but that title is definitely not reflected by the ability. Devotee of Devastation. You get deplete when you're in my bullseye. Okay, neat.
The only thing I can think of is if you could somehow get Tabson to take a damage after your I3s shoot, you could coordinate a reload during combat and start depleting people that way.
That's a fun combo wombo, but that's definitely it's that combo wombo area where it's like, I did my thing, I'm gonna lose, but I did my thing.
I mean, if Dread has the block, if he's not shooting anyways,
True.
Like, there you go. Deplete the ship that you blocked as well. Could be
Because
interesting.
that bullseye extends also to range 0 because there's no range limitation on that. Ryan, you said you just like the title and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this might be one of the weakest FO bomber named or unique ships that we've seen so far in terms of ability. Depletes are okay, but if the enemy ship does a blue maneuver after you give it to them, it's very null. They may like think about it a little bit, but then you're reloading, which means you're not shooting. And I was looking at deuterium power cells to double check if that was a way to get rid of disarm. Because that's a card that we don't see a lot, but it is a first order card.
It does work, yeah.
During the system phase, you may spend a charge and gain a disarm to recover shield, or you can do before you would gain one non-lock token. If you are not stressed, you may spend a charge to gain a stress instead. So he could reload and slap deuterium power cells on there to still be able to shoot while the opponent's depleted, but then you're stressing the ship that only has 1, 2, and 3 straight maneuvers and turning off the system phase boost. The Turing power cells I think is like 10 points too, so it's like way too much.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think what the use of this pilot is going to be extremely dependent on like what secret sauce, what different thing does it have, and why am I going to take this over something else? Because if it's cheap enough and it has a set of upgrades slots that none of the other bombers do, that's where it probably sees play. And the ability is it's similar kind of to Von Regs, where it's like, I brought Von Reg because he's I6. You might bring Dread because he's the only, I don't know, trajectory simulator double bomber out there in the FO or something. It's kind of something of that sort. And Ryan panics immediately. But you know what? You know what?
Boost trajectory. I already saw what Death Ring could do. I mean, so this literally screams to me as the pilot that it's gonna. If there are other i3 pilots, this one just would be the same price as the i3 generics, just because the ability is so minute.
Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it could like swap out. I mean, I am also clamoring for any bomber with the second bomb slot, but it could be something simple that like he's like the same price as the generic i3, just doesn't get a talent or something.
Nah, you know what? We go Merle route. He's cheaper.
Cheaper than the i3. You have to. It's a penalty to try to remember this ability. It's a penalty to encourage you to reload. Fair enough.
You either get this ability or you get a talent slot. Your choice.
Yeah, I think
would
that
take
makes
feedback ping much more than this ability.
There you go. All right, let's go ahead and check out the next one. All right, Ryan, we got Electro Chaff Missiles.
All right, so this is not just a missile. It is a missile and a bomb slot. It's double unique, so it's like tracers. You can bring 2 of them in a list. It has 1 single charge. During the system phase, you may spend 1 charge from this card to launch 1 Electro Chaff Cloud using the 3 bank or 4 straight template. Then place 1 fuse marker on it. this card's charge cannot be recovered. So, and we don't have the effect of the actual cloud, right? We just have this card.
Right.
So I think we saw, what was it? Someone got a picture of the box that showed some of the contents, or we've seen the spread. We that's what we assume that big cloud thing was.
Yeah, that Batman looking thing.
Yeah. The fuse marker, though, brings a question of, does it take a turn for it to ignite, or does it just mean it's staying on it gets placed and it stays on the board for 2 turns only, right? 1 turn with the fuse marker, and then it's gone after the next turn type of thing, you know?
They recently, I'll touch on that before you finish. They had recently updated fuse markers to include obstacles and read when a fused obstacle would be removed, 1 fuse marker is removed from the obstacle instead, and that obstacle is not removed. So it seems like
could be when a ship moves through it, it removes 1 so it could catch another or something, maybe.
Right. So it's I wonder if it's like a
not a net, right? Unless it's a weird
right.
net.
So it puts it into that line where, like, you're not a device, you're not a remote, you are an obstacle, but it might still have effect of, like, even if the fuse marker goes off, because it doesn't say that it delays anything. It just says that when the fused obstacle would be removed, 1 fuse marker is removed from the obstacle instead. So it might essentially be just a 2-use bomb out there.
Yeah, and you
I
know
could see
what?
that.
If there
Are we
was,
thinking it's the same? Go ahead.
I was going to say that the only thing is, I think since first edition, people have kind of thought, when would X-Wing get some type of chaff in the game? And this is it. It's
What's
not
a
talked
chaff?
about a ton, but I've definitely seen people custom make their own or fantasize about what it could be, and we have chaff.
Well, what
Except
is a chaff?
It's a launch forward instead of a launch back. Chaff is a common technological item used in air combat or in fiction space combat that's designed to break locks or obscure the target, or basically just
Countermeasures.
It's a countermeasures type, but it countermeasures was just a card that, like, all it did was break a lock.
No, because I'm saying it's the ones like because I used to work on I used to work on the CH-46 helicopters, right? And they had one on each back wing, and it's a box about, well, that's the camera. It's a box about that big, and it had around 20 something little things in it, and then if something was coming at it, it would shoot out like 20 something flares on either side.
Yep. If you've seen Squadrons, in Star Wars Squadrons, if you play that, there's a countermeasures in that game that basically launches a cloud out behind you and obscures things, breaks locks, things like that. So it dissuades missiles or whatever. So we had countermeasures the card in first edition, but we never had like that cloud token effect type thing, which we're getting now. So
yeah, I'm when I see this, if anybody's read the Thrawn books, I mean, obviously we don't know what the abilities are, but I think this type of card could be, if anybody's familiar with the spheres that the ships that he's on, they're kind of similar to this, where they create a spread. It like hits something and it kind of creates some type of obstacle out there. I think this is kind of could be a potential precursor to that. I know I'm kind of going way out into the future, but that's just something that kind of comes to mind, is the use of spheres.
That sent you a picture and say, "Hey, look what you don't know."
I asked if I could ask any questions, and I was told no. And I said, okay, I'm not going to ask any questions.
Before we move on, I will note that because it has no faction restriction, this is eligible on TIE bombers, TIE punishers, hyenas, HMP gunships, fire sprays, and K-wings.
Of course the fire spray could get it, of course.
And
why not?
Eventually the wartime loadout resistance Y-Wing.
Oh, yeah.
Ah.
because that one does get missiles and torpedoes, and we know it already comes with bombs. Yes, I think we've seen the loadout that had bombs, right?
Yeah.
And two
Two more shields.
pips. Don't forget.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, you
he's
can only
saying
take
that
2 of
it's only bring 2 of them. And you can not recover this charge either, so you really are only bringing 2 of them.
Yep, because it's 1 charge. It's cut off a little bit.
It's
But
got
yeah,
to be
that's-
really good, effective. If they're limiting it, it's because they're afraid of the effect.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I can think about.
Well, I mean, could you imagine like just the logistic part? What if you just had
Spam this on TIE
spam
bombers.
this on the board and on TIE bombers? You just had to deal with placing all those on the mat the entire game. That just sounds like arduous. That's like if you brought as many ships as possible that can bring big cargo chute and Jabba the Hutt, and just littered the entire board. Similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty big, and for size, you can kind of reference the size of the cards here. Kind of look that it's about the width of a card and a little bit. If you look at that width, so it's pretty chunky in size. Pretty chunky in size. Next, we go to Malice. I forgot who's next. I think it's Will.
Sure, I'll read it. We've seen this one a little bit. We've
But now we have the full card text. It is confirmed.
confirmed to be crew. This says, while you perform an attack, you may spend 1 force charge to change 1 eyeball result or hit result to a critical result. If you do after you perform that attack, if the defender was dealt 1 or more face-up pilot or crew damage cards, recover 2 force. Obviously works great with Kylo because he can show people the dark side. If you're in the silencer, I don't think is there another force user for FO to rock crew Kylo? I don't think so. But would be nice on people like us. Pretty much any dark side user except for maybe Vader. But Vader does like spinning force on offense as well, so could be a good place for him too.
Yeah,
I think,
that X1 Vader is this like you get to double crit basically with him, right?
well, this would be also Defender Vader, right? While you perform an attack.
No, because he Defender Vader says only for its regular.
No, it just says
ability.
while you perform an attack. You can use Malice
Oh.
on Vader.
Oh,
Yep.
so it is on Defender Vader.
It,
also.
it works, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, so if he didn't have enough force, if
You didn't have enough force to modify all your offense because you needed no other mods whatsoever. Here's more. Woo!
But this one is obviously good, right? Like
Yeah,
you just look at it.
This one is clearly better than Compassion, I think.
Yeah, X1 Vader and Defender Vader, but I think X1 Vader and Asajj are probably the best.
And ETA Anakin, it doesn't say primary attack. If you want that crit, if you want Critikin,
Critikin.
How many crits? More.
all more.
Yep, there is Malice, and unfortunately, I do
Wait,
kind of look.
question.
Go
So
ahead.
can Anakin and the ETA take both Malice and Compassion?
He doesn't have 2 force slots.
He doesn't? Oh.
No, yeah,
But
he's got
he can
Force
take either
Elite.
one.
Oh, yeah, he's got a Force and
ETA
a...
Anakin can dark side and light side, just like we're
He can take either one.
assuming Kylo and the Whisper can too, because this Compassion card comes in the back. Shows Kylo.
True. It is a little sad that Compassion is not as good as Malice. Like thematically, I'm just like, oof.
Yeah, but the dark side is always
mean-
stronger. I mean, come on. Like,
I mean,
you're digging... Yeah, you got to... digging into hate is...
You say that
supposed to be more
until
powerful.
a ship just saves another ship from dying with Compassion because they took 2 pilot crits at once.
Yeah, so the weird part is if like Malice becomes very predominant, Compassion is a kind of tool that could help against it, maybe? Because you think
I see what you're
Malice would
saying.
go first, right? You would deal the crit, and if the crit's a pilot or crew, they recover 2 force. Well, if someone with Compassion says, no, they don't take that crit no more recover 2 force.
Yeah, I feel like this is only limited by not choosing the pilot crit, which Kylo can do.
True.
Kylo's
Is
really
Whisper
good at that.
Kylo's? I'm trying to think. Is Whisper Kylo's flip up when you defend? Is that what his ability is? You flip up their face down damage cards after you defend.
I'll go grab it.
I'm taking a look. Before an enemy ship in your bullseye is dealt a face down damage card, you may spend 1 force. If you do,
Okay.
damage card is dealt face up instead.
So you would need
So
silencer,
it's not dealing a crit; it's actually flipping it. It's
right?
different.
Which they don't say expose, which is super strange. Why they have a word for that? But anyways,
Kylo wouldn't mind Malice though for sure.
yeah, silencer Kylo. Now we're talking.
Quick question on this. So I'm reading that, and I think somebody in the chat said it says, while you perform an attack, you may spend the force to change a force to a hit result or to a crit. So does that? I mean, this basically means if Anakin can take this, this basically means you can take marksmanship, Malice, Anakin without a blaster,
R787,
and then no. Well, that's if you want 3 crits, and then you can take Obi-Wan with R7 marksmanship, because the problem is you can spread it out, because there was no way to guarantee 2 ships getting crits all of the time unless you had Bullseye with the ETAs. But now Anakin was with this, and Obi-Wan with R7, and then both of them with marksmanship. That creates quite the pincer in saying who do you want to look at. Like that combination there, and then you just got a 3rd ship, maybe like Ahsoka in the Delta 7 or something. That creates quite the conundrum for ships. Okay, like no matter which way you go, you're taking out a damage. And this one doesn't have any charges, so this one is even worse. And actually, it says, what does it say? After you perform that attack, if the defender was dealt 1 or more face-up pilot or crew damage, or okay,
yeah. So if the crits that land on the hull are
to the pilot,
are pilot, you recover the force that you use to spend on this plus a bonus one. Yeah, Malice. I think it'll be priced to use to sell, but it is probably an initial candidate that we're going to go like, all right, this probably needs to go up in points.
Yeah, I'm liking
in the next one.
The double auto blaster ETA with this. I think this will be either Anakin Obi or Anakin Shotzi.
Let's hope that it's really priced by initiative and just can walk out.
Why would it be priced out of initiative though? There's no mechanic in there that's
because he doesn't want Anakin with it.
Yeah, and Anakin and Kylo with it is better than say a generic Inquisitor with it.
Yeah, so you just price it to the ships that are actually going to take it at that higher amount. Like that's unfortunately what you have to deal with, because there's no mechanic and like actually mechanically you would like if they were that good you would want these on lower initiative ships because they shoot later and more likely to actually deal out the damage after shields are gone.
True.
Auto blaster.
I'm just saying, yeah. If this is priced the same on someone who can rock an auto blaster versus like a 2 attack dice ship, I don't know. Maybe it was just based on your force charges. That would be cool as well.
That is probably a more direct use. I like that. Well, there you go, Malice. Thank you. And the last one, Shattering Shot. Shattering Shot. Force upgrade. It says, while you perform an attack, if the attack is obstructed by an obstacle or the defender is at range 0 of an obstacle, you may spend 1 force to add 1 focus result. Marcel?
I mean, it's pretty good. It depends on how it's priced, but I mean, it essentially cancels out the extra die that you get from, assuming you have a focus token. It essentially cancels out the bonus dice from obstacles, and it tends to work out really well if, like in a list, let's say the XTC list that I was flying. Well, actually, no, that's a terrible one because the other guys can't use this. But on a list with like CLTs and stuff like that, if they land on the rock and you're shooting them even if it's not obstructed, just because they're touching the rock or the debris or gas cloud, you still get that effect because of the range 0. So it doesn't have to be obstructed in that regard. And if you have a way of tractoring them on it, I think that'll be really good. But for the most part, again, it's just a better version of Trick Shot, because Trick Shot gives you an extra die. This one gives you an extra paint result. So as long as you're focused, you're gonna throw them. Again, if you put this, if it's priced to sell, and you put this on the CLT Jedi, they're pretty good.
I mean,
Or even ETA.
you could put them on the Adas and have, why not both? Trick and Shattering.
Just
Yeah.
point them right in the center.
And they can carry
Get
tractor
the extra
beams.
ones, and then the next turn they jump off the rock and move. Yeah.
Yeah, like Adas can take tractor beams. That can be a good way to get things on rocks or where they need them. Shattering Shot, you're adding an eyeball result, and then Trick Shot, you're just throwing another dice. It's a very good combination.
Oh, you're saying Trick Shot, this, and Tractor?
It can all be on one ship right now that have three or 2 force. Yes, it exists. It will be a thing. It potentially could be really strong, actually, in my eyes. Because think about this, right? Even if it costs 2 force to do, how good is it to just spend 2 force to add a hit? Because that's essentially what, like, if you don't have the focus,
Mm-hmm.
and if all this card said was, because it's spend a force to add an eyeball, right? If you don't have a focus, you're basically spending 2 force to add a hit. How good is that in your eyes? You're adding an entire hit to your roll as long as you spend 2 force.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah, Tommy in our chat beat me to it. I was gonna say Leia in the Falcon. She's one of the few, or Rey, I guess, one of the few turreted Force users, other than maybe Anakin Y-wing, who could make use of this.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
Falcons
yeah.
are really good at using
Side
obstacles.
arcs,
So, and that's not even like, so at baseline, we already agree that like using 2 force to add a hit's good. But if you just add a focus, you only need to spend 1 force, and then you've added a focus like CLT, like Marcel mentioned. So, Adas, Leia Falcon, what else kind of stands out to you, Will?
Very few people are obstructing. I'm trying to think of like turrets. I want this with Kira or Outrider to try to ignore the obstacle, but there's pretty limited use. Asajj, I guess. Kanan does have a turret and can just 4K onto our obstacle because he doesn't care. He doesn't need those mods. So maybe, I don't know. I think with the with gas clouds, this is not as good, but maybe, is this Y-Wing doing one of those belly runs? Is this what's going on here? Is this the hard counter to belly run?
Oof.
You know what this is, quote, a hard counter to is my droids, my struts. What are you doing to me?
Yeah, this is true. Well, honestly, the way I look at it is, it also, I think versus clouds, it essentially cancels out that evade that we kind of expect happening in that. I think the unfortunate thing is that because it's only for Force users, like Force users are usually the ones that benefit the most from clouds because they have the focus changing ability plus the cloud. And I'm sure, like, I'm thinking kind of, fluff wise, that pilots that don't have access to the Force would have loved to have Shattering Shot as an option to get past obstacles and to have that available for other ships or some type of other answer to people hiding behind clouds. Because I actually think this is a good answer to a meta where everybody's just taking clouds all the time and it annoys you.
But small counterpoint, could it even benefit the ships that like to hide behind clouds even more? Because if they take them themselves, Trick Shot and Shattering Shot if you're Adas, because they can have that system phase reposition, that allows them to push damage while staying super defensive at the same time.
You're right. All right, next pack, guys. Seismic torpedoes. Let's go. Bring them back.
Bring all the seismic charges again.
All right. So those were those cards that again, I got them in my inbox and told the people is what happened there. And yeah, I'm excited as we get creep closer to the release of this. Again, it's supposed to be September 24th is going to be the release of these boxes. Super excited to get our hands on them and start playing with new content, because who doesn't like new stuff? I like new stuff. All right, well, it is time to change gears just a little bit. Marcel, so what's happening in a couple weeks with XTC?
I don't know. I just saw what somebody's trying to sell. What are they called?
I don't know.
Star Wings, Alpha Class Star Wings for. And all right, let's change the subject from that. Woo! I'm sitting on a landmine. I mean, on a gold mine.
Oh yeah, don't sit on a landmine. That's
no,
bad.
No, landmine, gold mine. Yeah. Yeah. So in 2 weeks we have the finals, the top 10 out of 38 teams facing off in a mano 9 rounds of round robin. It's gonna be exciting. I'm hyped. I have done zero prep work for it, but I'm hyped. Yeah, and I know William has done zero prep work for it. Where's the camera? There's the camera. William.
I mean, I've done zero since the list were released. We did a lot of prep work up until that point.
But I've seen all the lists, and I actually did some prep work. I didn't do prep work prior to Sunday, but from Sunday to today, which is a whole 24 hours, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do it. And there's a lot to talk about here. And since we have, this week and next week, I figure we spread this out over 2 weeks to really be able to look at it, because there's a lot here. It's already 9:20. We've already been going for almost an hour at this point. So, just kind of trying to be concise with what we're looking at here. And specifically, what I want to focus the conversation on noticing where teams brought something different than what they brought originally, and having the discussion focus on that. All right, having the focus discuss on that. We're starting here. I believe this. Let me just double check. I believe this is Team Ireland. Yes, Team All Ireland is the full name of the team. And one of the first changes I noticed here, by the way, for anybody who's visually watching, the left here, this is what was brought in the Swiss rounds in the stage 1, and the one on the right is the final event. All right, so it's that it's not the finals, but you know what I mean, like the next round, the final round. So we start here, and one thing you also notice, I noticed that some players changed as well. Not sure if you noticed some of that subtle stuff in there, Marcel. But so we start here, Rebel Alliance. Chris Caves, same player, brings what looks to be a completely different ship. Had the Kyle, Hera, Benthic, Two Tubes, Garvin, like that typical Rebel stuff that you were normally seeing, and completely shifts to Han Solo with Trick Shot, R2-D2 crew, Kanan Jarrus gunner, Jake Farrell with proton rockets, and a Rogue Squadron escort with fire control system and R3 astromech. Thoughts?
Well, I think a couple of the GSP tournaments have seen E-Wings do well, and have seen the R3s really chew up the false transponder codes, especially with the R3. So and Han Solo is just good. I mean, I think people sleep on Han Solo so much, uh, including. I mean, we didn't take it, but yeah, I think Han Solo is still, if you compare him right, he's still one of the best ships out there. Especially, he is probably. I'm trying to think of a better points fortress than Han Solo, and I'm hard pressed to think of a better point fortress. Um, just really good. So yeah, I think it's an upgrade. I think it's a definite upgrade because the old rebel token stacking beef squads are not cutting it. They're really not getting too far. A lot of people are flying them in tournaments. They're not getting that far. I think people are just figuring them out, and they've got limitations, and people know they've got limitations. They know how to pair against them. It'll be tougher to pair against this rebel squad. We're still going to chew it up, but
There's a lot of squads. You can't talk trash
But
on
it's a
every
better
squad.
one.
All right.
I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to talk. Look, I'm going to be completely honest. This is a list that needs to be paired up correctly, because if it's not paired up correctly, it'll get chewed up. But it's a definite upgrade. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well,
upgrade.
let's move on to Ireland's Imperial Squad. Take a look at what we got here, Will.
All right, for Ireland, they had brought, this is Nick Harris from the Firestorm, had brought multiple Scimitar Squadron pilots. Looks like 5 with proxies and missiles of different varieties. Oh, torpedoes as well, ion torps. And has switched to Connor Holmes flying a disciplined Baron Swarm with proton rockets and tracer missiles. So this is efficiency in a different way. The Scimitars have good follow-up to the Joust, but can be picked apart pretty easily, whereas the Barons have more agility. You get another ship. You get proton rockets. You get a lot of extra actions with that discipline. So it seems like a logical upgrade to me. You would have to really hard counter or you'd have to get a good matchup with the Scimitars, whereas these Barons don't necessarily need a hand-picked matchup. So, makes sense to me. Really?
I mean, so you would think shifting everything meant that they
Dion, I think
barely.
you're muted.
Oh, you were
sorry.
muted.
Yeah, sorry.
again.
What? So sorry to repeat myself. Is all I just took a peek at all the lists for all Ireland, and they changed every single list for every single faction. So I want Ryan just to let us know, like, why do you think a team would shift every single list when they got in? They got into the final round. Why change? What do you think?
So normally, I would think that would mean that they felt like they barely got in, but I think they were one of the highest win percentage teams out there. They only lost one game out of their whole bracket, and they went 6-1. So either they felt like they squeaked by with the 6-1, and it was a little bit closer than what the final results were, or they wanted to make sure that they've updated themselves. They've looked at what was previously brought by a lot of the other teams and found some other things that they felt were good adjustments, maybe not direct counters, but things that provide more tools for them to go against what they believe, not alone what showed up before, but has been evolving as XTC has gone on in other events such as GSP and some meta trends.
Can I smack talk a little?
Sure.
I call it
It's your podcast too.
6-1. They beat England. They beat Canada. They beat the two top teams outside of themselves in their unit, in their group. To switch everything shows one of two things. It shows complete confidence. Is like, hey, you know what? We could do this all over again. Or it shows complete lack of confidence, insecurity, and like, I don't believe in what we had. I don't believe in us. I don't believe in how we got here. So we're going to mix everything up. In Ireland's case, I'm going to go, and this might be, no, this is not might be, this is complete smack talk. But in Ireland's case, I'm almost certain it's insecurity. I'm not saying it's not going to work out for them, but it's insecurity. They felt like, we probably don't belong here. We got lucky. We need to step up our game. And they stepped up their game. I mean, all these lists that they have are better than the ones that they had. Mm-hmm. So they did step up, but I think it was a bit of insecurity there. A bit of not belief in what got them there. Isn't that like a sports thing? Like,
why would you change strategy with what brought you to the championship? Something of that sort. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it is definitely an interesting debate for sure. All right, Ryan, take a look at the scum switch here.
So the scum switch, we have same player, Jonathan Beatty, going from a Zuvio Boba Dengar to a Bosk with Zamgredo False Transponder, Lando in the Falcon with Cutthroat Jabba False Transponder, Lando's Millennium Falcon, and then Asajj with 000 False Transponder, Contraband Shadowcaster. Do we know if this is the same player as the one who ended up winning GSP with this list comp?
No, this Scum and Villainy is a popular list. Many of the XTC teams have chosen it. So I don't think
this was what won Dagobah though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, you're bringing max amount of false transponder codes and saying no one's allowed to get actions as long as we exist. Bosk Zam, we know, is really good. Asajj has force, but also has kind of a third force with 000 as long as you get close, which Asajj kind of wants to do. And Lando's just back there with Jabba, hanging out, saying we're just going to make sure we make everyone be as annoying for as long as possible with false transponder codes.
Bashuda.
And everyone's I4. They're all big base I4s too, which is very important if you want to move things around and self bump. Say if someone got a block, but you could set the order of operations of how you want to move your ships in response. So it's a good list. I think it is better than what was there before by just looking at it. I agree.
All right. And next we move on to the first order, and this is where you start noticing a change. Now, kind of going off of what Marcel was saying, and this is not too, this is where every pilot on Team All Ireland was the same, except a swap between Connor Holmes and Nick Harris. And here is another change. Want to take a look at that, Will?
Yeah, so it was Connor flying the Malware, Malice, and Typhos. And now Nick is flying Kylo Ren with Extreme Maneuvers, Rush with no upgrades, and then a Predator Recoil to get a 196. Abandoned Blackout to get those extra... which is normally what you'd see in a triple silencer list, to get the extreme maneuvers and that 4-point bid, which I think is very interesting there. I really like Predator Recoil. I think he's underrated. Boost into range 1, get a reroll. Why not? Sounds great, right? Random Rush is good and Kylo Extreme is good. So this is, I think, if I would to take a guess, well, it could just be Nick likes silencers versus a malware swarm. But also these two lists. These two.
Hi, Cheerio.
She's excited. She keeps handing me toys. These two lists, I would say, are geared to fight different things. And Ireland might have been like, we have too many lists that just joust. Let's get something that can fly and reposition and move. So they went with the silencers. I mean, it's hard to not bring Kylo in the first order. So I think this is probably an upgrade as well, as long as you can use that maneuverability.
All right. And we get to the resistance, and a big change here. Big change here. There's we have Richard Polly flying the resistance. Originally had brought Vinny in the resistance bomber with all the trappings there. Joff Sea Striker in the T-70 X-Wing, and ZZ Tlo, resistance staple, and has switched it up for basically a different type of resistance jousting squad. We got Jess Prava with a couple of Red Squadron experts carrying heroic, and then you got double pods, the good ones, the ones that everybody likes to bring out there. You got Rose with C-3PO and just a Finn with heroic. Nice and simple yet effective. So just a change in strategy there. I'm curious to know if maybe they felt that the resistance bomber was maybe a bit of a liability in their lists, but went for something that I think is a little bit more. The floor is higher for that, because if you know how to use Vinny and can get some luck, I think that can be a really consistent squad. But I think the newer resistance squad is maybe a safer choice.
So honestly, I had never looked. I've seen their new list, but I had never seen their old lists.
Yeah, because they weren't part of your group.
Yeah, their old lists are pretty bad. Like. No, seriously. Like, would you fly Vinny, Joseph, ZZ at a tournament? Like, they're pretty janky and bad. And I'm wondering if the fact that they had bad, janky lists, like Spain had bad, janky lists, and they went 5-1. If that was one of their advantage in pairing and not knowing how to prep for it. Because they moved to a lot of tried and true things, things that have won tournaments, a bunch of Barons, the scum beef, this list, which is all over the place, 5-ship resistance. Outside of their rebel list, like they're all kind of Me Too lists, copycat lists. I wonder if that's if that's gonna hurt them. I mean, is it the fact that because their other lists were pretty janky, and they went 6-1, like you said. I mean, they won 6 rounds with it. I wonder if those 6 rounds were just catching people off guard in the pairings and being like, I don't know what to throw at this, but I know exactly what to throw at the resistance. Like at this one, I mean, I would assume like I could throw anything at it, it'll beat it, and then get stomped.
You could throw anything at the 3X 2-pod and beat it, eh?
No, I think you were talking about Vinny.
I was talking about Vinny.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait a minute.
No, like a Vinny list, you're thinking it's like, oh, it's a bad list. I can just that can be my throwaway list, and then you throw away a list that this Vinny list will just chomp on, because you're not familiar with it. But I'm super familiar with Resistance 5. I know what does well against it. I know what does bad against it. I wonder if that's going to turn around and bite them. All right, and the Republic, I don't know if it's the last, they also have CIS, but the Republic went from Wolf, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Goji, which again is kind of a unique list. And then they switched it to tried and true. You've got 4 Delta 7 Jedi at 196. So they're going from something that is completely unique, something that you don't see a lot, hard to pair against, hard to know what exactly it wants to do, to something that you know exactly what it is, you know exactly how to beat it. I the more I see this, their lists are better on paper. I'm not liking it though. I think they're gonna struggle because people are gonna know how to pair against them, and they're gonna hurt because of it. So I'm calling it here. Ireland will be in the bottom 5. They'll be in the bottom half because of this changes.
I mean, there is still something to recognize when you feel like you played your test lists or your more, because maybe they felt in the Swiss rounds that they were going to try out stuff before the cut, assuming they were going to make the cut. Obviously, they still had to work hard to make it using the list that they did choose originally. But now that they made it, they realized, okay, we got to bring tried and true things. So, I mean, as much as you say it could be a thing that come back to bite them, it could just as easily be a thing that is a big boon for them too. To recognize when what they brought before will not cut it now. And even though people feel like there are known commodities, they're also still known to be good in all cases anyway. I know
Probably.
pairings and setting up those matchups can be a big deal, but the pairings aren't one sided, as you know. Both teams have a say as how those pairings will go.
And additionally, this is a complete pilot swap. We have Cormac Higgins and Chris Baird there, seem to be switching roles. So maybe Cormac might be switching to sub. Is what might be happening there for that final round. All right, and then we get to the Separatists, which is a very completely different list. Take a look at this, Brian.
All right, so we go from a variation of Zamgo, where the only minor differences are Django had Lone Wolf, and there was only it was only a hull upgrade on Zam, to a Droid Swarm 7 ship, my favorite. We have 3 hyenas. Let's see, we have 2 of them with plasma torps and landing struts, one of them with mag pulse missiles, I like the tech, with Dark One probe droids and landing struts, 3 Discord missile drones and struts, and then 1 last vulture with just struts. That's a very, I won't say cookie cutter, but that's the type of 7 ship droid swarm that I'm most familiar with. It's 4 vultures with 3 pieces that you get to mix with, whether it's some variation of amount of HMPs, tries, or hyenas. Through a lot of my testing, I found even though as much as I'd like to try the tries out more and the HMPs, the hyenas still just fit the bill in filling out that spot really well. The Mag Pulse missile is, I think, a good call to bring in droid swarms. Whether or not you bring one or multiple of them is a good question, I think, because with the increase in things like reinforce from Bosk, the focus passing from Hera to Garvin back and forth. If you hit Garvin with that Mag Pulse, he will jam and lose a token that he has, or if Hera doesn't have something to pass back and forth, it basically just stops that token sharing unless there's a plethora of tokens, which with with Kyle Katarn around can be pretty easy to attain. Plasma torpedoes, pretty solid call. Lots of things with shields right now to get that extra damage. Discord missiles have always been good. I know from experience you still got to work really hard to be on par with some of the top medalists, even with droid swarms right now. Even though you do have things like Dark One probe droids that can help against FTC, but it's a lot of high-powered offense right now that can push through those amount of ships and lower that swarm that swarm ship ratio advantage that normally feels like it takes longer in a game to chew through. It can now be done faster to bring to the opposing ships and team's advantage.
Let's go ahead and head over to our next country. We are heading over to England. Let's get on a plane together and head to the Isle of Britain. Here we go. Now this is captained by Oliver Pocknell. If you didn't see the hot sauce challenge, you missed out on that a couple of weeks ago. But we'll start
on YouTube.
The hot sauce challenge. Yeah, it's up there. Oh, of course. Alrighty, so we start here. I'm just gonna kind of go through some of the easier ones. Their rebel list is exactly the same. It is the Wedge, Garvin, Hera, Kyle. We'll move on. And do notice a difference in the pilots, though. You got Paul Owen versus Julian Hood. Then
Which
you get
is cheating, by the way.
Why is that cheating?
Because Julian is Australian, Mike.
But
well,
he's
also, I'm more familiar with Julian flying Empire or Scum stuff. I wonder if this is a little bit out of his wheelhouse.
Well, we'll find out. That'll be interesting. And actually, I wanted to jump to Empire for that reason exactly. Julian is well known for playing that just kind of different Empire, just that Empire that's just a little bit different that catches people off guard. Originally was running Seven Sister, Fifth Brother, Death Rain, and Kestel, and now we have a completely different pilot, Tim King, in the driver's seat, flying a Admiral Sloan with 5 Sinar specialists, and that's carried by Captain Faroff. So this is the Galaxy's 2020 winning list, is what we got here. Any thoughts on the switch?
Good call, and I hate him.
Sloan's always good. Could definitely still be matchup dependent, though, depending on, a lot of people like over avoiding Sloan, but I think if there's enough passive mods around it, they can deal with the stress, allocate it correctly.
And don't sleep on Tim King. He prefers to fly swarms. I do know that. So that is, I'm not surprised to see this kind of list with him as a pilot there at all. Then we get to Tom Reed flying a different scum list. What do we got here, Will?
All right, so originally was Torkel and Auto Blaster Spacers, which we've seen perform well in our tournaments and others. Pulled one off against Julian Hood. Is that right? One of the finals, I believe so. Anyways, it has switched over to another dirty net list here, the Lando Asajj Bossk. This looks like the same exact loadout. Contraband, false transponder codes. Yep. 199 for this. I think they might have lost something, but yeah. Like I said the last time we saw the Lando Asajj Bossk, it for whatever reason, this has been like the preferred XTC scum list, and I can see why. Very hard to deal with. Have to have the right tools.
Then First Order, Kester Smith bringing the same list as before. Hollow, Muse, Revis, and 3 Epsilon Squadron cadets. So nothing's changing there. We get to the Resistance and no, sorry, is that the same? That is not the same. What's different here, Will?
This was ZZ, Tali, Sefton, Zari, Marcel's infamous Proton rocket for A-Wings, now has swapped out Sefton and Zari for a loaded Pover drive here. Outmaneuver R4, Ferrosphere paint, overdrive thrusters, and proton torpedoes. That's a 94.7 health to agility ship.
You
Wow.
gotta get it. I mean, we're talking about Ollie of the 186 flying the 186. He is throwing at everyone's face.
Well, he has been flying this Poe with
Ray. But I'm just saying, like, he is flexing like the 186, 186 point bid, because I would think that is completely intentional on that 186.
The bid going to 186.
I applaud the guy for, if GSP was numbers, Dion, I would have flown a GSP initiative list, but I don't know how you convert GSP to numbers.
I'm sure somebody could. 17 is probably the answer. So figure that out.
I am not flying a 17-point list. I don't know.
No, you take a 17-point bid. You take a 17-point bid.
Okay, I could do that. I was thinking,
which would be even stronger. That would be 183. You look at me. I only need 183 points to beat you.
So I will say, even though he put it to 186 points, I think we don't normally see outmaneuver on a lot of Poes, but this is the kind of Poe where I could see it, especially if you want to keep those wings closed and you may not have the lock for proton torpedo. Just that extra chip damage of that 2 dice is still there without maneuver. But also, Ferrosphere Paint, I've been saying, has some play right now. A lot of things want to target lock. And if things want to target lock Poe, then it's going to be really hard to target lock this Poe because he's going to be moving last and he has overdrive thrusters. But if someone attempts to lock Poe, they're likely going to be stressed unless they actually get him in bullseye. Otherwise, Ferrosphere Paint is going to make sure that Poe's enemies are going to be a little more restricted on their maneuverability. So between tracers, between false transponder codes, ZAM's condition, it's a lot of things that either acquire or take lock actions that have a bonus. And Poe says, all right, if don't have me in the bullseye, here's the stress.
All right. Next, we move on to the Galactic Republic. Used to be flown by Ollie, but switched to Lloyd Bowman here. We got a shift in list as well. We had Anakin in the N1, Obi-Wan in the Eta-2, and a couple of Jedi 7B Knights. And we've shifted completely to 7B Knights here. All exactly the same. Just take 4 of them, and you're sitting at 196. When we get to the Separatists, we got some of that same tech that's out there. Dom Flanagan just bringing a Techno Union bomber and Trade Federation swarm. This is pretty similar to what we saw in Team Ireland as well, isn't it?
It's the exact
same. I feel like Team Ireland look at Dom Flanagan's systems like, we want that one.
Yeah, we'll take that one.
Went to the dealership and said, that one's shiny.
Overall,
let's go.
Ireland and England are probably like 6 out of their 7 lists are almost identical.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. We'll cover one more country tonight, and that's going to be Team France. Let's go ahead and use our friend.
No, let's do a fun one. Let's do either. I know we're going to get the other ones next time. Let's do either. Let's do Spain. That beat us.
Oh, okay.
That were our one loss. Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll save the United States for next week. Is that what you're saying?
We'll save the U.S. and if we got time to the others next week. Yeah, but Spain is a fun one.
All right. Well, here we go. Start us off, Marcel.
All right. So the Rebel Alliance actually switched pilots from Jose Maria Ungaro to Sergio Sanchez, and they went from the old and boring to. I actually like this list, and it's pretty scary. It's the The old and boring for those listening and not watching, being the Garvin, Benthic. Actually, it wasn't old and boring because it didn't have Hera. So it was Garvin, Benthic, Kyle Katarn, and Sherbay with vectored cannons above all things. But they went to a more consistent list, I think, with 4 X-Wings, Cavern Angel Zealots, and 2 Tracer Bandit Squadron Z95. So 6 ships. All 6 ships can lob 3 dice at range 2 and 3. And those caverns probably are going to be double modded. Very scary list. Very hard to pair against. Very hard to beat. This feels like a Blair Bunky list. But
Yep. Do you think this one probably starts on the table, right? Like this one's a go ahead and pair against it list?
yeah, this is a try your luck. Who do you... I mean, there is not a single list that says, yeah, I can beat that. I don't think. I mean, there's just a couple lists that might say, like, I might be able to beat it, but there's no good matchups against it.
I think there's a list that can outjoust it at a higher initiative that can initiative kill one of those Cavern Angels before they shoot.
Well, are you talking Barons or what?
Resistance.
Resistance for T70s, resistance, anything. The resistance stuff is pretty good because a lot of double modded shots with multiple T70s can do it pretty easily.
Maybe.
All right. Well, we move on now to the Empire. Go ahead and take a look at this, Will.
All right. So the Empire was Antonio. That's still Antonio. Nino was flying Grand Inquisitor, a loaded out Whisper, Duke Passive, Fifth Brother Stealth, and Captain Feroth as an Emperor Palpatine carrier. That's Captain Feroth in the TIE Reaper. Now has switched over to I think the only Rear Admiral cheer now in the tournament, and certainly the only 115 point Rear Admiral, which has Lone Wolf, Darth Vader, Death Troopers. That's the keep your stress at range 1, Agile Gunner, Thermal Detonator, Suit Upgrade, and Dauntless. And then paired with him is Soontir Fel with Predator, Shield, and Hull. So that gets him to 5 total health on Soontir. But that Rear Admiral, wow. The amount of action economy that thing has. So if your actions reinforce every round, you get the focus mod. You can strip tokens with Darth Vader, which is basically a free jam action. You got Lone Wolf rerolls. You got Agile Gunner rotates. And it goes to 186. Super deep bid. Because we saw a lot of Jedis and Jango Zams floating at about 11 to 12. So pushes right past those into that 14-point mark to really leverage that board information. I don't trust a Rear Admiral at 115 points, but this seems intimidating if you can get that Rear Admiral to engage correctly.
I will say Death Troopers is one of those upgrade cards that I forget about until I see it and I go, I hate that card. It's so
Really good.
It's so
really
good, forcing you to keep your stress at range 1.
This is a complete ace killer. The only problem is if you don't pair it against an ace, if you pair it against one of those droid swarms, or if you pair it against one of those resistance beef or something like that, that rack is going to have a bad time. Like, oh, you don't have a token. Okay, but your 6 other people do.
Can confirm. Rack is not like Discord missiles. I've made many racks sad against Droid Swarm.
All right. We continue here, and we have a change at the Scum and Villainy position. Ryan?
The same pilot, Andy Romero, went from a Lando Falcon, Namlam, and Asajj to a 3 zealous recruits and Ketsu with Fearless, Zam, False Transponder, and Shadowcaster. This feels like nothing we've really seen much of. The closest thing I think comes to was the last extended event for Jeddah, as it was Jeddah, that had the Ketsu and a couple Sikhs, and it was like a 5-ship list where Ketsu was featured with a similar loadout, providing some of that tractor control, along with just that it's actually pretty good firepower. Once you get Ketsu's very scary range 1. It's like a big no-go zone, even more so with Fearless, and then also with Zam, so you don't want to get shot twice. And Zealous recruits. Will, you know all about those. You love those ships, and you bring 3 of them. I mean, what kind of matchups don't want to see those 3 Zealous recruits?
Yeah, I've seen something. I think Octer had switched to like a Bosk 3 Zealous recruits. I've seen a couple people try to fly something big and tanky, like a fire spray or something with 3 recruits. So I like this Ketsu version though. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see the Zealous recruit. I mean, the Zealous recruit feels like a pilot that when you're getting in range 1 consistently, it very quickly pays for itself in the amount of damage they don't take with the Concordia face-off, plus just being consistent damage dealers, having 4 dice at range 1. Just good. Alrighty.
I will say that my favorite part about this would be blocking with the Zealous recruit and then tractor beaming them off of a recruit to get shot at. The best thing about Shattering.
That's definitely a trick that they can do with this. Is Zealous recruit blocks, Ketsu follows behind and said, "You're not blocked anymore. Eat him up, Zealous."
Right? Get him.
All right. Then we move to First Order, and I was kind of surprised to see this. Marcel?
Okay, in continuation of bad decision making, they went from Kylo Ren, Commander Malice with Pod Edition, and 3 Epsilon Cadets, which I thought was one of their better lists, because you get Kylo, Commander, and 3 ships. So they downgraded to Malice and 3 what do you call them? The Sinar Jarmus. Basically 3 silencers, that the Initiative 1 silencers. Project Tradition and Agent Terex. I just think this is a downgrade. Now, I don't think Commander Malrus and 3 silencers is a bad list. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that's a bad list. That's a good list. I just think they had one of their better ones with Malrus, Kylo, and 3 Epsilons was much better because it did so much more. The Epsilons basically guard and kind of like in Daniel's list with Zam and 5 Trade Federation drones, they're there to just basically be a nuisance and say you're going to spend a lot of time trying to kill me for very little points. And then Kylo Ren they have an end piece. I just feel like they lost their end piece, and there's going to be a lot of, with a lot of the boss can shoot through these signers pretty well. Aces can outfly them pretty well, especially aces with bid, which almost everybody that needs a bid is flying better bid than 198. I just think it's I don't know. I don't think it's a good call for this type of tournament. I don't know. We'll see, because I didn't think they had good lists in the first time around, and they kicked our butt and they went 5-1. So, or actually, no, they went 4-2. Yeah, never mind. They didn't go 5-1. They went 4-2.
I do want to point out it is also a different pilot. Previously was David Lozano, and now it is Marcelo Soto, who's leading the charge there for the First Order. We move on to the Resistance, and this is the same list as was before, a very consistent jousting squad. We actually talked about a very similar version with a couple of tweaks here. We got Rose with C-3PO, one of the best coordinators in the game. You got 3 red Squadron Escort X-Wings with Heroic, and then we have Zari Bangale with Threat Tracers. Pretty simple idea there. 199. We joust, same pilot, Apollo Rodriguez. Nothing.
Before you
But
jump off this one, real quick question
They
to
added
Ryan.
the jamming beam.
Oh, what happened? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
jamming beams are back.
I
Don't forget
super
your
don't
jamming
care.
beam.
So I got a question
What?
for
No.
Ryan. Ryan, in your
They're good.
opinion, is just Paba and Finn better than Zari with Tracers in this list? And so basically, you lose Jess downgraded to a Red Squadron.
I think it's sorry with tracers. It's really hard to lose Jess. She's so good next to Rose too. Like most resistance lists right now, an archetype you can build any archetype off of starting with Jess Rose, right? Are you Jess Rose, slightly jousting to help out like a Poe and an A-wing like Carson Ray had, get into better position while still have a viable jousting threat? Or are you going full joust and just finding the other pieces around it? I like Jess a lot, especially like I said with Rose. I think if you really wanted thread tracers, you could find another way to get there. You could, instead of taking Finn with Heroic, you could take a Fireball with thread tracers, and I feel like you would get a very similar result. Granted,
Ooh, fireballs are initiative 2, though.
take the initiative 1 X-Wings, whatever.
Fair.
But yeah, that's your only downside is your initiative differences at that point. But I think the red experts are still really good. Heroic on an X-Wing is good. Like that defense additional minor added onto it that's double blanks are less likely to happen because you have Heroic. It's not as much of a fallback thing. I'd still rather have the double modification offense that the name pilots have, but they're more expensive for that reason.
Awesome. Then we move to the Republic. Will?
All right. So the Republic used to be Marcelo, and now it is Jose. It was CLT Obi-Wan, Crit, Anakin, Marksmanship Auto Blasters R3, and then 2 104th Battalion pilots, very similar to what Ali had been flying. Seeing a couple other people fly it as well. But now Jose is choosing a loaded up Anakin, Patience, Marksmanship, Auto Blaster, R3, Stealth Device, got Sense R5, Calibrated Obi-Wan. So you got a couple more upgrades there. The Healing with R5, the Sense with at range 0 for free, or range 0 to 1 for free. And then a Ricole with Juke and Healing R2 Astromech. This is a list that reminds me of what Marcel likes to fly if it wasn't baby Anakin out there. I think this is... I've actually gone back and forth with a buddy, a local, who got a bunch of arcs. He's like, was real excited to fly arcs, and sometimes they just underperform. They get lit up in one round without much retaliation. Without like Warthog or Wolfpack out there, they can really feel lackluster. So moving into this more triple ace style, I think could get you more matchups that would be preferred. And that's one thing that my big takeaway from these team events is that you either have two trains of thought. We all want generalist list, so pairing doesn't matter as much, or if we want to cover our bases and trying to hunt down lists, because you can put attackers down, you can counter somebody. So someone's like, oh, I have a 193 ace squad. You can just be like, well, do you want to face a 192 ace squad? Yes or no, right? So it could be easier to pair because you can prey on lists versus more of a take all comers, which is what this kind of arc list was, in my opinion.
All right. Then we move to the Separatist Alliance. Ryan? Actually, we'll just go ahead and it's the same list. It's Django Zam. as
They didn't
expected.
take the advice of the other people about the droids. It's all about the droids, maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. No droids.
You know, it's funny that there's a lot of so a lot of teams went with the Asajj, Bosk, Lando. I think like 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's understandable. It's just a really scary list, very difficult to pair against. A lot of people went away from the Django Zam in the top 10, and just it's very interesting because I think the Django Zam lists, when you add them all up, had the best win percentage in the group stage. So, just curious why they would move away from what worked. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason why they did, but I just thought that was interesting. If they had the best win percentage, they're still good until points change when hopefully stuff happens. Why move away from it?
Well, maybe
I mean,
there is.
realistically, it's the benchmark list. Everyone thinks about it. Can you have a fight against Django Zam? If you can't, should you bring the list competitively?
That's true. And the other kind of twist in this is, if a bunch of people are bringing Django Zam, it's kind of like Revenge of the Swiss. This idea of when you face the same thing multiple times, you get multiple opportunities to try to attack it, right? So in this team format, if you bring something a little bit out the box, you only got to win your game against that particular person one time, right? Versus the possibility of facing that person again, because there's no repeat matchups in this final stage. So that maybe could be a reason why you see people going away from Django Zam, because if you're thinking like, all right, you know, if you're going into list making going, everybody's going to bring Django Zam, let's not have that. So maybe we have that thing that's a little bit different. Maybe?
I mean, we've dealt with Django Zam for a long time. It feels like this season of X-Wing, this kind of points season, has dragged on longer than most. But I think it has given us time to assess these lists and really delve deep into what makes them good. Because we what was it, 2 seasons ago, maybe in the last season, or for points change, that's why I refer to it as a season, we were dealing with Boba Fett. And we're like, okay, this is how, we learned to counter Boba Fett. It was like, all right, he's got Slave 1, he's got Force, blah, blah, blah. But now, dealing with the double fire spray in a different way, we learned to counteract that, what works good with it, how you counteract false transponder codes, things like that, right? And now that lists have adapted, we see more E-Wings with R3 start stripping out those false transponder codes. It has that effect that it's no longer an unknown, right? Man, the first time you face Django Zam, you're gonna have a bad time because you don't understand what it's trying to do, right? If you don't understand that it's trying to drop bombs and jam you and things like that, right? So now that it is known, it doesn't mean that it's gonna lose games, but because it's known, I don't think it will have as high of a win ratio. But I think the people who are keeping it are like the diehard double fire spray people, though. People who know that list better than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, what were your impressions after taking a look at those 3 countries?
So most of them make sense in terms of what they opted into. Some of them are questionable, though. Like the few that stand out as questionable, Desi Soontir, that's going to have to find that specific matchup. Ali may be bringing that 186, and he may have a lot of reps with Poe, but better make the right decisions with Poe. He'll die. That's a lot of points to give up half on. And those A-Wings pretty much got their 1 procket shot, so he's got to make sure he gets up early enough in the game for let Poe close it out. I think there's a smattering of a few that's already been mentioned. Marcel, I think, mentioned another one earlier with the First Order losing Kylo, opting into the Malice and 3 Silencers, which is a fun list I've tried in the past, but I agree it's not the better option. So some questionables, some that make sense, but I think as much as I would like droid swarms, I don't know why you move away from Zam Jango right now as well.
And Marcel, we'll wrap with you. We took a look at 3 of the countries. You saw some of the changes. It sounds from my side, you sound more confident. It sounds like your confidence increased looking at these lists.
I would say we only looked at 3 today, right?
We only looked at 3. We looked at
so I would say,
Ireland, England, and Spain.
Yep. So I would say Spain went from janky Spain, catch people sleeping, to even more janky Spain, gonna get not catch people sleeping. I think they got worse. I think that Ireland went more meta, but that might hurt them more than help them. And I think England made the smart decisions outside of the resistance. I have faith in Ollie, but I look at the resistance 186 the same way that I look at our Doug Howe at 188, where we said, well, we only need 2 ships, and we're gonna rely on Doug being Doug and basically make matchup nightmares and win games based off skill alone. So I think that's kind of the direction that they went with, with Ali at 186 with, a million point pull. So I'm genuinely thinking that England upped their chances of coming out on top with the choices. They made really smart choices. And I think Ireland made smart choices. I just don't think they can back up those choices.
Oh,
I'm being honest. I think they made meta calls, but I think the jankiness is what got them through, and I think the meta is gonna hurt them. I think they should have stuck to what got them here in the first place.
Agreed. And JB Bestis had asked in the chat, do we feel like there's anything that's completely new from what we saw? I agree with you, Ryan. It's the Ketsu and the 3 Fangs is probably the least common. I'm going to say least common. There's been things kind of like that before. A big bad with 3 Fangs, like Fen Rao and 3 Fangs, is just kind of different tech to go about with. That's definitely one I'd be curious to get on stream, and it's probably the one that is the most different. Do you guys see from this set? I think that's probably what we see. All right, well, next week we'll go ahead and hit the other ones before we roll into the actual XTC. A reminder, we will be streaming the XTC final round here on GSP along with a bunch of other Twitch channels. Hopefully you guys hang out with us. That's happening that Saturday and Sunday. And then the following week, we have our next Galactic Championship qualifier, which if you want to sign up, go ahead, get signed up. Head to goldsquadronpodcast.com. It is the Jeddah, we just had Jeddah, the Tatooine Galactic qualifier. And that is happening during the Cape Town, South Africa time zone, which is exactly the same as a lot of our European friends over there. So it is an extended event, and if you're waiting for hyperspace, October 2nd is when you're going to want to be waiting for. I know we have some hyperspace fans out there waiting for their next opportunity. All right, any closing thoughts before we head out, friends? All right, well, thanks for watching. Be smart, be safe. Gold Squadron out.